Ever thought I'd be written into a song by world-famous Taylor Swift? Now I finally get what all her exes must have felt. She's got a genius way of twisting stories. I'll give her that, she's made millions doing it. But what really gets me is the irony. The woman who screams female empowerment is now mocking another woman in her lyrics. You sell a brand built on supporting women, yet you use your song to shame one just because she once looked down at her phone. Honestly, you and that man deserve each other. He lies for sport and you believe every word. Yes, I loved Travis once. But only a fool spends 24 hours a day revolving around a man. That video, the media caught me holding my phone, looking down. I was reading a message from my mom. She said she felt dizzy. I almost rushed straight to the hospital. But the clip got cut and twisted into a story that I was glued to my phone, that I didn't care about Travis. And that moment became his little trick, the tool he used to win sympathy from his new girlfriend. As if having me as their shared enemy somehow made their love stronger. We all know a real man, one with a spine, doesn't turn his past into a joke just to impress someone new. And you, Taylor Swift, you're about to marry that man. Out of pity for your terrible taste, I'll let it go. But do yourself a favor.
Taylor Swift is obsessed with black women just like the world is obsessed with black women. Our intelligence, our resilience, our swag, our bodies, our culture. And to be a black woman is to be gaslit every day, to be made to believe like they don't give a damn about us, when really they cannot stop giving a damn about us. That is why everything we do is policed and critiqued. We talk too loud, we're too angry, we wear too much makeup, we wear too much weave, we want to be seen. Just grooming ourselves makes us want attention. By simply grooming ourselves, everything we do is under a microscope, because they are obsessed with us, and they will gaslight us and try to make us believe that they really don't acknowledge our presence. But our presence is undeniable. To be a black woman, you must know this. You got to know this because you got to keep on shining regardless of what these people are going to try to convince you of.
Taylor Swift is obsessed with black women. Let's talk about it. Taylor Swift is obsessed with the fact that several of her exes have moved on to date black women, and she perceives this kind of conquering of Travis as an end or disruption of this pattern, and she's boasting about it in this album. Let's start with Opalite, which is very clearly about Kayla Nicole, Travis Kelce's ex-boyfriend, whom he dated off and on from 2017 to 2022, and oh, Kayla Nicole happens to be black. The lyrics in Opalite could actually not be clearly more like targeting Kayla Nicole, right? It references a video that went viral a couple times in which Travis is literally berating Kayla for being on her phone. Meanwhile, she is an influencer, so that is weirdo behavior because she was working and it's very controlling, but it is very clear nonetheless that that video is referenced in Opalite. The lyric reads, "You couldn't understand it, why you felt alone, you were in it for real, she was in her phone, and you were just a pose," right? Like, Taylor could not have been more obvious and like less creative here. It's not enough to me that like Taylor is using this like crazy like worldwide medium to best a woman that like previously dated her ex. It's also the fact that like Taylor is fully aware that Kayla has received like relentless and racist harassment, oftentimes terrifying, from Swifties in reaction to the fact that she previously dated Travis. So like this is like purposefully and like blatantly violent. This song accomplishes two things at once, right? It proves the fact that Taylor Swift is obsessed with black women, and it endangers Kayla Nicole. But obviously our country is not at its best with critical thinking, so let's like analyze a different part of the song, right? So another lyric says, "But I'm not a bad bitch, and this ain't savage, but I'm never gonna let you down." So in this song, Taylor positions herself as this like unique, singular white flower that is so different from what? Black culture. And once you step back and realize the song is like final boss pick me X racism, you realize that Taylor Swift is preoccupied with like this obsession with black women, in part because Travis Kelce has predominantly dated black women in the past, and she wants to define herself as different from his past and therefore better. Again, very weird, very pick-me behavior. Taylor's not only preoccupied with this idea that Travis has historically dated black women, it's also the reality that several of her exes have moved on from her to black women. And that confounds and ultimately like enrages her, and she's so obsessed with the pattern and the idea that she had to talk about it in this album. Chris, give me examples. Okay, well, we have Harry Styles, who is now reportedly dating Zoe Kravitz. We have Tom Hiddleston, who has moved on to be engaged to and co-parent with a black woman whose name is Zawe Ashton. And then we have Calvin Harris, who went on to marry a black woman named Vic Hope. So it is a pattern, and Taylor Swift is clearly aware of it because she is obsessed with her exes, and all of that together is making me feel very, very strange. And ladies and gentlemen of the jury, today I'd argue that this idea, the idea that white men have historically left Taylor Swift for black women, is part of her personal mythos, right? I imagine she finds it both confounding and devastating that these men have left her, who is like the pinnacle of Western white beauty, right? She is the ideal white woman. Meanwhile, all of these white guys are leaving her for black women, and I'm sure it's really pissing her off. So when Taylor secured Travis, she achieved the ultimate feat in her mind. She had convinced a white man to leave black women for her, and the mythos is complete. She has disrupted the pattern, she is the queen bee yet again, and this album is all about her obsession with that weird mythos and her obsession with black women. At the end of the day, you know and I know that Taylor Swift is a deeply calculated and intentional person, right? She drew up these lyrics and this 8th grade symbolism very intentionally. It's very red-pilled and incredibly macro-aggressive. So I guess the moral of my story here is you Swifties, the ones who refuse to call her out on her bullshit are the same exact type of white feminist that she is. You protect bigots and you traffic in and enjoy anti-black bullshit. And that makes you a bad person. All right, bye.
There has been a lot of discourse around Taylor Swift's new album, The Life of a Showgirl. One of the most prominent critiques right now are that some of the songs are racist and microaggressive. Some people see it as microaggressive, and some people feel like there's no racism at all, that she is just talking about her experiences. But I think what a lot of people fail to realize is that the function of a dog whistle or microaggression is that it is meant to be ambiguous. Dog whistles and microaggressions are plausibly deniable on purpose. It is meant to chip away at your self-concept while absolving the perpetrator from all responsibility. You can often feel that there was something wrong with what someone said, but you can never quite point it out because it is so subtle. Calling it out ends up making you look crazy. The perpetrator is almost always let off as not knowing or not meaning it that way, and because of the ways that we have been conditioned, many people will side with the unknowing white person. We've been conditioned to see them as peer or as victims. Even if someone is unknowing, a lot of people don't realize is that a lot of us have been socialized through media and messages to absorb specific harmful tropes. And those specific harmful tropes impact how we see people and how we treat them. In order to understand why some of the content in Taylor Swift's new album is controversial, I think it's important to look at the history of the dehumanization of black women in the US. And yes, before you ask, it does stem from slavery. We all know that during slavery, slave masters R-worded black women. Slavery was justified by dehumanizing black people, and the mistreatment of black women was justified by dehumanizing us and giving us the stereotype of Jezebel. Jezebel is a sexually loose and immoral woman, and it painted black women as hypersexual, loose, and seductive. This made it easier to exploit them in that way because they could just justify it by saying that they wanted it. On the other hand, white women have always been viewed as pure, feminine, delicate, and chaste. Once slavery ended and previously enslaved people had to make a life for themselves, black men were often denied the ability to gain employment. This was often done by their white counterparts. Black women, on the other hand, were able to pick up domestic work. So when previously enslaved people made families, that meant that black women were often the breadwinners. That also meant even if they did have children, they weren't able to take care of them because they had to work, often being forced to care for the white children of the families that they worked for. Because they were the breadwinners and because they didn't take care of their children in a traditional sense, as in a white Western nuclear family ideal, black women were seen as less feminine, and because white women didn't work and stayed home, they were seen as the ideal of femininity and womanhood. This has carried out into dominant stereotypes today, where black women are still often seen as hypersexual and masculine, while white women are still often seen as the picture of femininity as well as the beauty standard. As you already know, but I'm going to reiterate anyway, this is precisely one of the main issues with white feminism, is that it only accounts for the struggles of white women who are privileged and wield a lot of power in society, and not of the intersectional experiences of black, indigenous, and women of color experience both racism and sexism, both of which intersect in complex ways even today in society. It's also precisely the issue that people have with Travis Kelce dating black women and then marrying Taylor Swift, because it reinforces this long-held idea and standard that black women are just for fun and white women are to settle down and marry with. And this historical context is also what makes Taylor Swift's lyrics, intentional or not, so damaging, because she compares herself to his former black partners in ways that reinforce this dynamic and these negative stereotypes about black women. An eldest daughter, when she says, "But I'm not a bad bitch and this isn't savage," this is a direct reference to Meg Thee Stallion's song Savage, whom it's rumored that Travis Kelce tried to get at before he started dating Taylor Swift. We know that one of Meg's main things is reclaiming her sexuality on her own terms in a way that empowers women to be confident and to step into their power. This is part of a long tradition of black women reclaiming their power by subverting dominant narratives. And black women have always used the word bad bitch in order to embody that idea of empowerment and agency. And whether or not a bad bitch is black or not, the term bad bitch or baddie is a term that refers to aesthetics that co-opt black culture, particularly black women. And Taylor Swift contrasts this with her insecurities as well as a sense of moral superiority. She says, "I'm never gonna leave you out, I'm never gonna let you down." She reinforces the dynamic of her being the morally superior white woman as opposed to his previous bad bitch black girlfriends. And that reinforces the stereotype of the Jezebel morally inferior black woman. The same thing can be true when she calls herself Opalite as opposed to Onyx. Even if she didn't mean it that way, the historical context makes it loaded. This is what people mean when they say that things are racist, even if you can't see it, because the way that we view racism and microaggressions relies on historical context. Same is true for Wishlist when she calls Travis Kelce juxtaposed to his ex-girlfriend and contrasts her or their want for material goods with her want for a suburban life where she is the perfect, pure mother and wife. I think it's easy to see this as not intentional or not racist because most women do compare themselves to their person's exes. Obviously, look at them in the worst light if we feel like they did something to hurt our now person. But the context changes when you are a rich white billionaire who positions themselves as the perpetual victim against this idea of hypersexualized and materialistic black women. And it's even worse when you are the biggest pop star in the world, because the reality of the rhetoric of such stereotypes do reinforce systemic inequalities. They do carry messages that are harmful, especially harmful in this current cultural and political climate where black women are actively under attack. Perhaps it's an honest mistake. If you watched my recent story time, you know that I made a similar one. In a recent wedding speech, I strung together a bunch of words that could have evoked the idea of a dumb blonde trope, and even if I didn't mean it, that impact matters, because some saw it as a harmful stereotype that relied on the dehumanization of women. And that is as someone who has a master's degree in rhetoric and teaches English at the college level. So I am not the morality police because we all make mistakes, but I do hope that Taylor Swift eventually educates herself on intersectional feminism and does better in.
But I'm not a black bitch and I'm not a savage, but I'm scared that you might cheat on me with the black hood bitch, and she's gonna have a fat ass and I have a flat ass and I don't have no titties, but your last ex, she has some perky titties, and I'm a insecure white girl with a flat chest thinking that I want a man that used to date black women, and now I'm taking shots cause he's all that I got. Oh yeah, he's all that I got, and I'm never gonna let him down cause he's all American white man, and I'm his American white girl, and he's never gonna be down for the swirl again because I had the crown and I won. Ha ha! But I'm a little insecure because he might cheat on me with a black hood woman.
Taylor Swift has revealed herself to be resentful of black women, or at least deeply insecure when it comes to comparing herself to black women. In the song Opalite, Taylor is referencing Travis Kelce's ex-girlfriend, Kayla Nicole. The lyrics of Opalite include, "You were dancing through the lightning strikes, sleepless in the onyx night, but now the sky is opalite." So Taylor is not only using the lyrics in the song to talk about how she is so much better for Travis than his ex-girlfriend is, which is inconsiderate on its face, what did that lady ever do to you? But she is choosing to do that using the imagery of onyx, which is typically black, and opalite, which is typically white. Or in Eldest Daughter, Taylor says, "I'm not a bad bitch, and this isn't savage, but I'm never gonna let you down." The language of bad bitch and savage are primarily associated with black women, at least in this context, especially black women in hip-hop. both make me think of Megan Thee Stallion immediately. And there were rumors that Travis was trying to holler at Megan back in 2023, shortly before Travis and Taylor started dating. So I read this lyric as, sorry, I'm not a hot, cool black woman like he usually dates. Or in Wishlist, she says they want a fat ass and a baby face. Big booties are not unique to black women, but if we're all being honest here about the associations of black women's bodies over the last 400 years, big booties are and have been associated with black women. Now, could I understand why Taylor might be insecure about this? Yeah. Knowing that thousands, if not millions of people are looking at your man's exes and then looking at you like, huh? Would make me insecure too. But to be even relatively conscious of the trope of white men dating black women until it's time to settle down and have white babies, or the trope of men dating black women until they get richer or more famous, or to know the way that Kayla Nicole has been dragged to hell and back because her high-profile ex, a white man, started a very public relationship with one of the biggest pop stars in the world, a white woman, and how many people hurled racist jokes at her and black women generally for it, to know all that and still dunk on her one more time to your millions of loyal fans. For this to come up on at least 3 different songs in one album, for her to play into harmful tropes that she has to be aware of, and for so many of Taylor's fans to not notice or just not care, this album is simply not for me. There is enough thinly veiled racial resentment in the world toward black women. I don't need it in my pop bop.